Recording in progress.
Recording in progress. 3, 2, 1. Welcome in Mountaineer Nation. I'm Sam the Man, and this is another episode of the Mountianeer Effect coming to you right here on YouTube. If you haven't already, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. We're almost to 600 subscribers. Once we get there, we're going to start doing some giveaways, some cool stuff from Sam's Closet, like autographed jerseys, autographed cleats, things like that. So be sure to pound that subscribe button. With me today is a special guest, Marcus Dean, host of The Flavor of the Week. He's coming on today to talk about some of his experiences over the weekend as he went and visited the UNC Tar Heels at home against Wofford. He's going to tell us a little bit about that experience, and then we're just going to talk some general football. So tell me, Mark, how was it going down to UNC and watching them play? You know, you kind of got a cheap game there against Wofford, but what was the experience like actually at UNC?
Well, honestly, to be honest with you, I mean, the experience was second to none. I mean, it was a great vibe there the entire time. Excellent fan base. I mean, I made several friends down there. There was very welcoming, a very warm family environment, a great place to take your kids to. And it was a very nice drive down here from where I'm sitting out here in Roanoke, Virginia. It was a 3-hour drive down. Very nice. A drive down to stadium was absolutely beautiful. I mean, the outside of the stadium was, a great ACC stadium. And on the inside, you didn't have, the cool thing about it, I love the most, you didn't have to sit on metal bleachers with numbers on it. There's actually seats. You got seats. So you got some nice back support, sit back and chill and watch the game. I mean, it was great. I mean, and, they opened up a can on Wofford with second and third stringers, even though it was senior day. And a lot of the several key seniors played maybe one or two series. Then they were taken out of the game for precaution reasons, and not necessarily precaution reasons, but for reasons to get ready for next week's game, which is a rivalry game. They're going to be playing NC State on Friday, 7:00 on the on ESPN. I thought it was on the ACC network, but no, on ESPN. So for all you Tar Heel Nation out there, make sure if you're not in Raleigh at the game, make sure you're in front of your television, screaming and yelling at the TV like I will be. What
kind of facilities do they have? I mean, like, what did you get to see as far as, I don't know how much you got to see, but, how does it compare to other stadiums that you've been to and other facilities that you've seen?
I've been to a lot of different venues across the ACC. I've been to Blacksburg. I've been, to Virginia Tech. That's a nice – the one good thing about Blacksburg, I will say, they have hands down the best entrance in college football. Whether you love the Hokies, hate the Hokies, they had the best entrance in college football. I've been to Wake Forest. That's another nice little city with a great university, very beautiful campus, but that's less to be desired for. I've been to Raleigh with the at NC State, which is another nice, very similar to UNC, good atmosphere. Been up to Charlottesville at UVA, which is a nice facility, a very beautiful, very beautiful architectural type stadium there at Scott Stadium. Very nice stadium, but that's about it. I mean, the people are arrogant, so it's not very welcoming in Charlottesville for a visiting team. And been to Duke at Wallace Wade Stadium down in Duke. I mean, it's an old school feel to the Duke Stadium. I mean, it's like a giant bowl. I mean, it looks like a giant toilet bowl, the way you go into it. But, it's a nice stadium too. But, good people down in Duke, down in the Durham area. And that's really the only stadiums that I've personally been throughout the ACC, is mainly the ones in North Carolina, here in Virginia as well. But, hands down, I mean, Chapel Hill is just a special place. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's got a nice home vibe to it. It has a very welcoming fan base. Being new to Tar Heel Nation like I am, it's very, a lot of folks are very chatty in the seats, introducing themselves, and just wanting to talk to you, get to know you. And I did get to tour the basketball. I went earlier in the day, got into the Dean Dome and toured the museum there at the basketball facilities. And I don't know if I was supposed to go in there, but I was with a buddy of mine who's an actual, his son plays for UNC. So I kind of snuck into the football facilities. I don't know if I was supposed to be in there or not, but no one said nothing. So I followed him in there. So it was a very nice in facilities. I mean, everything's Jordaned up. I tell you what, man, if you go to UNC, you'll absolutely love Jordan.
I mean, that's that's just kind of, that's the King's ground. That's the King's brand. The King's guard right there.
I mean, it was great. I mean, it was very, the cool thing about it was, of course, you have your concession stands and everything like that, but like at different concession stands, they had different types of food. And me being a barbecue lover and barbecue connoisseur like I am, I had to hit up the barbecue spot there and had this very nice vinaigrette barbecue sandwich. Oh, it was amazing.
That Carolina barbecue is good, man. It's different. Well, it's different than what you get. A lot of people, it's never had Carolina barbecue, don't realize like it's really different from
it's
normal barbecue.
A whole lot different.
You better like vinegar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has a vinegar base to it, and it's a little bit more spicier than the barbecue that menus used to eat. But it was very good. I mean, the barbecue sandwich and your chips, and I got a collector's cup that I brought back with me. About $10 to $15. I mean, a good sandwich and enjoying some pregame festivities. And even though Carolina didn't have a full stadium, they had roughly between 35 and 40, about 35,000 there. They said over the loudspeaker. It was Wofford, so that's not going to really draw a big crowd to watch Carolina beat up on a 1-9 team, which hey, it is what it is, but it was still rocking. I mean, the student section was what I was really impressed with, was the student section, how engaged they were the entire game, and they were just kind of just wanting to be a part of the festivities. I mean, it was senior day, but you got to see, the students and everything like that, but they were like, they had their own section there, of course, had their own section there. I mean, it was loud. That was the loudest part of the stadium, was the student section, which it should be.
Right. Well, it sounds to me like, it sounds like good family environment.
Yeah.
My kind of thing with UNC this year is, they were expected to do big things this year, and I kind of fell a little bit short. And my question's been, once Sam Howell's gone and, they move on, what does the team look like, for the next couple of years? Because UNC, they're not known as a football school.
Right.
But they've made a lot of strides in the last few years too to kind of pull themselves out of that. Mm-hmm. So what do they look like? Since you got to see really the whole team play against Wofford, what do you see for the next few years out of UNC?
For the next few years, with the incoming class they have coming on now, that is, we know how 17, 18-year-old kids are. They could change their mind at a drop of a hat. But as of right now, UNC has the number 9 recruited class in the country coming in. They have on their radar, they have 9 4-star players committed, 2 5-stars committed, and a couple 3-stars to round out the class. I think they're right at 16, 17 members right now. I think they're going to go to 18 or 19. Possibly that's all they can really take, is between 18 and 19. They graduated 20. They'll graduate 22 seniors this year, who's technically out of eligibility. And right now, as far as the youth, with what's coming in, I'm really excited about George Pettaway, and who's a big time running back commit from the state of Virginia, going into North Carolina to play next year. and Amarion, I can't remember his last name. It's escaping my mind right now, but he's another talented running back. So they're going to have a very solid backfield with what they already have right now. Right now, they have a very talented a freshman by the name of Caleb Hood, who got a lot of playing time. So they're going to have a rotating three-headed monster down there next year. I mean, it's going to be a very good wide receiver room as well. I mean, as they bring back next year, one of the best wide receivers in the ACC, Josh Downs, he'll be coming back for another year. And then they have another really talented freshman, J.J. Moore, who got a lot of playing time. And he looks really well. And then they have several other pieces that are coming in, wide receiver pieces that are coming in to play as possibly as true freshmen as for next year. So even though they're a young team, Mac Brown has said this on numbers occasions over the start of the season. He believes they were ranked way too high. He believes they got pumped up with too much hype in the preseason. It was all because of Sam Howell, and they weren't taking into account that from last year's team, you lost two players to the NFL, two running backs to the NFL, and Javonte Williams, and the guy that went to New York, the Jets. I can't remember his name. Right, Michael Carter. Lost him. Lost Daz Newsome, was a awesome wide receiver. Lost Dwayne Brown, which is those went to Washington, and Daz Newsome went to Chicago. So there's a big chunk of your last year's offense, and they lost some offensive linemen. So you lose 8,800 yards of production from last year's team. Then you come in with a number 9 preseason ranking, and they struggle for a bit because Sam Howell's kind of having to shoulder the entire load because most of his playmakers are, redshirt freshmen, true sophomores that are playing really specific roles for this year.
How do they look, as far as quarterbacks go? Losing Sam Howell's is going to be rough. I think.
Yeah.
I think he's going to go on. He'll probably have a decent little NFL career. Really. Right. What are they going to be replacing him with? I know, for all football fans, when your quarterback is leaving, and you really have to take a look at what you have. As a West Virginia fan, it looks like we're probably going to have Daggy another year, which is not a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. But what do you guys got waiting in the wings?
Right now, there's two very, very promising young quarterbacks. One was a former four-star, low 5-star player from North Carolina by the name of Drake May. He played the majority of the second half. He's 6'5", 220 pounds. Can make every throw on the field. It looked fantastic. He was 7 for 9 or 9 for 11. I can't remember exactly right off the top of my head. Had a touchdown through for, I think it was 115, or I was either like 115, 130, something like that. Then he's a mobile quarterback. He looks to throw first and run second. He only runs if he has to, kind of like Sam Howell. He only runs when he has to. And they did have some designed quarterback runs, which I was shocked he was deceptively fast for a guy that was 6'5", 220 pounds. That I thought was okay. He's got some wheels on him. This, kind of reminds me a lot of a young Sam Howell. He'll need to polish his mechanics look great, but he'll need to polish his footwork and, be quicker with his release. Then the other one they have is Jacoby Criswell. He is a talented 4-star recruit. He was in Mac Brown's first recruiting class. And they came in with Mac Brown in his first year. He is a redshirt sophomore. He was a former 4-star from Arkansas, which he's a dual threat quarterback. He's more of a run first, throw second type, but he throws a good deep ball. I mean, either way they go, even though I think Drake May will be the starter next year, that is, if Sam Howell goes to the NFL, because Sam Howell has not came out and said he's going yet. And of course he has time to make that decision and things like that. But if he's smart, he moves on to the NFL and get that money. But overall, I mean, their quarterbacks will be solid next year, but they'll be young, so they'll be, they'll need to grow up pretty quick.
Did Sam Howell participate in senior day activities?
He did. He did walk for senior day. So he did participate in that aspect of it, but he does have another year of eligibility. He does graduate in the spring, so he will have his degree. If, and he could come back to, get a master's degree to have one more year. And he's even said in a press conference, he hasn't made his mind up. In the most recent press conference of last week, he said he's still, considering all options. He hasn't talked to his folks about it, hadn't really said much to the coaches yet, even though Mac Brown has said publicly that he would, he encourages all players to go to the NFL who come back with NFL grade of a first or second round talent. He encourages them to go to the NFL and, live out your dream, because you're not guaranteed, you're not guaranteed anything in his life. And he always preaches that to his kids. And I think that's very admirable.
Well, and I do too. I think, watching UNC myself this year, Sam Howell is a tough dude.
Yeah.
Like you don't find them cut from that cloth much anymore. I mean, there's games where that kid has taken a beating and just kept on
Pitt.
coming. And Pitt, the Pitt game, like that dude, he took a beating. So I'd like to see him come back just for I guess personal reasons, just because I like watching kids that are tough like that play. I think they show a lot to everybody. Like West Virginia don't have that kind of toughness about them yet,
right?
And personally, I'd like to see them develop some of that toughness. With other things here and there, but with Sam Howell, I think he's got a potential to be probably a second round pick
right
this year, and he would be able to squeak into the first round depending on how his draft goes.
Yeah,
but UNC's been a really fun team to watch this year.
Yeah, over the last 3 seasons, they really have picked it up since towards the end of the Larry Fedora era. He kind of fell off there because of the unquote unquote, it was never proven, recruiting tampering, and everybody gets accused of it, mishaps with recruits and this, that, and the other. And ultimately his talent fell off because he kind of took the gas off of recruiting. And we both know recruiting is your lifeblood of the program. If you're not out there busting your tail recruiting, and just to give you an example, here in the state of Virginia where I'm at, UNC as of right now has committed 6 of the top 9 players in the state of Virginia to go to UNC and to play for Mac Brown and the Tar Heels next year. And in the state of North Carolina.
Before you move on from that, what does that say about Fuente at Virginia Tech? That North Carolina is, well, I mean, it says a lot for UVA too. UVA is a little bit different because they're a little bit harder of a school to get into. But what does that say academically? Yeah, what does that say for Fuente and the reason he was fired? I mean, it really shows you that it was a good fire, because you shouldn't be losing those kids to North Carolina.
No. I mean, honestly, with the talent, with what the state of Virginia has each year, I mean, they're constantly producing anywhere at least 3 to 4 5-star players every year, and 7 to 10 4-star players. With Fuente during the Fuente era there, I mean, that's what he constantly missed on was recruiting. I mean, he tried to build a pipeline to Texas, like the whole Virginia for V8 or Texas to VT bullcrap. I mean, you're not going to go to Texas and recruit and have kids that come from Texas to Virginia Tech. I mean, it doesn't make geographical sense. 2, that's just, you're setting yourself up for failure because you're ignoring what's here in the state of Virginia. Even when Fuente was here, they had the NC to VT movement, which they would go down and swoop, players from North Carolina, like a Dax Hollyfield, which he slipped through the cracks. Trey Turner was another one that slipped through the cracks that went to Virginia Tech and had success. I mean, there's been players from North Carolina too good at Virginia Tech to have success, but I guarantee that happened during the Larry Fedora era. And I guarantee if Mac Brown was there in 2016 and 2017, those kids would have been playing in Tar Heel Blue and not playing at Virginia Tech.
I mean, it really goes to show you that, Fuente just, and I compare him a lot to Dana Holgerson. They just didn't quite get it. They don't realize that, in your home state, West Virginia doesn't produce that many, D1 athletes year after year after year. Or a small state. Virginia, on the other hand, they do. And to lose the recruiting race in your own state to an out-of-state school is something that should never happen.
Yeah.
And, I think I'm glad Virginia Tech decided to move on from that, because I don't think they were ever going to find the success they're looking for under him. And
no, not under Fuente, no, because everybody, when he came in that first year, everybody was bending over backwards, kissing his ass that, hey, you went 10-3 your first year. Virginia Tech's back into winning 10 ball games, going to the ACC championship. But what most people with half a brain didn't realize, he played with Beamer's players for 2 years.
Well, and that's kind of what we're going to do with West Virginia. It's funny how that situation in West Virginia kind of parallel each other, because Neil Brown was left with nothing when Dana left.
What?
And he's, taken 3 years and pieced together teams and had, some moderate success with a pieced together team.
Yeah.
And, that's why, like, the whole trust the climb thing, I hate to say it. I hate to hear it. It just gets on my nerves. But, like, I really do see the upward trajectory, even though this year we haven't had as successful as a year as we'd like. I mean, you have to remember, West Virginia is 15 points from being a 2-loss team. That's it. This year could have went drastically different if you complete one more pass, or, get one more turnover or one more stop. Like, the whole season completely changes.
Yep.
And that's what people are missing. You've got so many people screaming for Neil Brown to go. But I have a feeling that if West Virginia, as an administration would give into that, Neil Brown's going to go on somewhere else to be successful, and we're going to be left stuck in the dark ages, looking for a coach that can take us to the next level when we had one the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, and Neil Brown's done a hell of a job, in my opinion, there at West Virginia so far, with what he's been left to work with. I mean, granted, like we said, originally we thought West Virginia would win 7 to 8 ball games this year originally. But, I mean, they're an eyelash away from, being right now being, 8-2, 8-3 right now. I mean, they could have beat Oklahoma. They should have beat Oklahoma. That's just the first game that comes to mind. They haven't really been.
I mean, Maryland. They should have beat Maryland. I mean,
should have beat Virginia Tech.
They did.
Oh yeah, that's right. They did beat Virginia Tech. Never mind.
But no, I mean that they were, the game. Some of the games they were lost, with the exception of Baylor and Kansas State. They were in those games.
Yeah.
Is that right, Baylor?
Oh no, Baylor kicked the shit out.
Baylor, Oklahoma State. Those were the 2 games they got blowed out at.
Yeah.
Like, outside of those 2 games, like, the margin of victory was so small this year, that you have to look at it in a different light. And, I just don't want West Virginia to give up on Neil Brown too soon, because when you do that, and I think some of the coaches that have been let go this year, when you look at Gary Patterson, Dan Mullen, like, these guys have been fired, a couple years in, or in a rebuilding year, or have been, Gary Patterson. I mean, he's had the most success at TCU that anybody's ever had. Like, to let those guys go, I mean, it's like you have to really process, who are we going to get that's going to be better? And like with Neil Brown, like, you get rid of Neil Brown, which direction do you go? Like, I can name 100 guys, but is that going to be the right fit? And for the majority of it, I don't see it.
No, I don't either. And you not only are you looking at, will this be a right fit for the program? Will this person fit the West Virginia culture? And to me, Neil Brown is that perfect fit for WVU because, he's blue collar. He's, a nonsense guy. He, has toughness. He has grit about him. And you're not going to find that in every coach.
No, I mean, you've got some nice young talent coaches, Coastal Carolina, Liberty, those guys. I mean, we all know who we're talking about. Like those guys are going to move on to do better things. And, I think, you might roll the dice with one of those guys and they might work out and they might not. Just like Neil Brown, the jury's really still out. Yeah. I mean,
in all honestly, you should give a coach 4 to 5 years before you can actually get an accurate assessment of what is your team doing? What is your program doing? I mean, are they in an upward trajectory? Are they competing like you want to? You want to know if your administration, your high dollar donors, are they satisfied with the trajectory of the program? And then that's where a lot of, presidents, athletic directors jump the gun as they don't give coaches enough time to build a program, and everybody wants to win now mentality. We want to go, we're going to, new coaches are come in, we're going to win 10 ball games. We're going to win 11 ball games. That doesn't happen. I mean, unless you get lucky. And that only happens at a handful of schools, that's only going to happen at a Clemson. That's only going to happen at an Alabama, an Auburn, an LSU, a Georgia, where you already have stockpiles of talent, even though they had 4 or 5, 4-star kids, 5-star kids that are sitting on the bench who never played, like under a Saban, and someone else new goes in. Oh, I got all these new shiny new toys, and they start getting on the field and they start playing, they start performing, and everybody's like, why can't we do that? It's all about recruiting.
Well, and that's another big thing. It's the thing that the some of the talk that's got me interested. This is kind of on subject, off subject, but some of the talk that's had me really interested is the offer that LSU made to Lincoln Riley.
Yeah,
and how a lot of Oklahoma fans are like, never happened. I mean, you're talking about 12. What was like $12 million
a year. That's $12 million a year. That's more money than Saban makes.
I mean, that would make him the richest paid coach in college football.
Right.
And, I don't know that Oklahoma would afford to pay that, close to that or whatever. But at the same time, like, it's just funny to me to hear people talk about, oh, he'll never go. He'll never do. It's not all about the money. But at the same time, they're leaving the Big 12 because of money.
Yeah.
Like it is to the SEC, it is about money.
It is money. Yeah.
And the thing is if they don't expect to have some sort of some amount of time where it takes them to get acclimated to the SEC, they're crazy. I mean, West Virginia has been through, the recent change from the Big East to the Big 12, and I think we're going to end up going from the Big 12 to the ACC, bouncing back and forth, and how chaotic that can actually be.
Yeah, it's detrimental.
It really makes me wonder if Lincoln wouldn't look at LSU and say, they're already established into the SEC. They're a big school. They're paying me more money. Why wouldn't he give them more? Why wouldn't he think about it?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have not only he's going to get the same amount of level recruits that he gets at Oklahoma, but maybe a little bit better recruiting at LSU because you have that moniker, you have that SEC logo behind you, and you're at a big time Power 5 school. And who's to say he wouldn't take a Spencer Rattler with him, or he wouldn't take a Caleb, help me with this one, Caleb Williams with him. Yeah. Who's to say one of them quarterbacks wouldn't go with him as a package deal?
And that's a possibility, like we're seeing things happen that you've never seen before, with the portals and the transfers and all that, image likeness and, not having to set out a whole year and all that stuff. Like, you never really know. And, it's going to come down to money and what teams are willing to pay. And if LSU is willing to hire someone to be the biggest paid coach in the land, that really shows you that they're committed to
football.
To football. And I don't know, like, I just think it's funny how quickly people dismiss the notion that their coach could run off to, it may not be a horizontal move, but it is in a way, like, because what happens if Oklahoma goes into the SEC and it takes them 5 years to get to the point, where they're winning, SEC championships year after year. Say for instance, they go to the SEC and they dominate the SEC like they did the Big 12. Now, I mean, that's not going to happen, but imagine it did. It's still going to take them a few years to get over that hump. And
exactly,
Lincoln has to be thinking, well, what happens during those 3 years where those expectations aren't met? Are they going to fire me? If I go on to LSU now, at least I got the money. And
exactly,
could still have, instead of 3 years, at least 5,
Yeah. And,
I just think it's something to think about.
I mean, and there's, everybody's saying, like you said, will he go, will he not go? And it comes down to, what type of person and what motivates him as a coach. Is it money? Is it winning championships? To me, if I was in his situation, I mean, you've already dominated at Oklahoma. There's nothing, literally, unless it's a national championship, there's nothing more for you to win at Oklahoma. Then you could definitely go, and you could definitely be the face of a rebirth of LSU. Just 2 years ago, won a national championship, and they still have that talent from that national championship team sitting there. So,
well, and that's the thing. I mean, the success he's had at Oklahoma, there's not much further you can go. I mean, like, going into the SEC, unless you are the kind of coach that wants the challenge of going into a new conference and learning the ins and outs of that. I mean, because the thing is Oklahoma, they're going to struggle with Alabama. They're going to struggle with Georgia. I mean, we already know that. Like, and then you throw Texas into the mix, whatever. But there's some good teams in the SEC. Like,
Texas A&M's a good team.
I just don't see them going right into the SEC and dominating like they have in the Big 12. And it's going to take a few years to get over that learning curve. Like, what happens when Oklahoma gets aggravated and, starts doing what West Virginia's doing? Let's find us a new coach. He's not doing what he needs to do. What happens then?
Exactly.
And Lincoln Riley, I mean, he would be stupid not to think of it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you got to think too. I mean, look at just to piggyback off what you just said. Look at the SEC West. You got, Auburn, which is a solid 8, 9, 10 win team, and they're under a new head coach in his very first year at Auburn.
And they're on the come up, whether people want to admit it or not.
Exactly. They got a great quarterback in Bo Nix, who's hurt right now, but they had TJ Finley, who's been playing really well over in his absence. And you got, Texas A&M, you got Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M. They're always going to be competitive. They're always, going to be a contender in the Western Division. Hell, they beat Alabama this year. I mean, and you got Ole Miss. You look at Ole Miss. I mean, Ole Miss, even though I can't stand Lane Kiffin and I wish he would have got hit by that damn golf ball in Tennessee game, but hey, that's nor here nor there. And you got him, and they're at Ole Miss. They're a top 15 program. And then you got LSU, even though they're on a down year under Ed Orgeron, who's kind of been asked to step down due to antics. Let's just say that antics. He's not leaving the cupboard dry.
No, not at all. I mean, that's the thing. The only team in the SEC that's a dumpster fire is Vandy.
Yeah.
And I mean, the rest of them are, 5 and 6, 6 and 6 mid-level teams that, you're talking Arkansas, Auburn, Florida, that have won national championships and you know, in the recent little bit, you know, and can compete. And I don't know, I just wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit because I think Lincoln Riley, I think he'll definitely take a listen from LSU. He'd be stupid not to. I mean, really.
I mean, the only thing that, let's just be really think about that. We talk about our coaches not going anywhere. Mac Brown's not going to go anywhere unless he retires from UNC. I mean, if you look at safe bets, you know, talk about coaching changes. Nick Saban's not going to go anywhere at Alabama until Nick Saban wants to go somewhere out at, you know, from Alabama. Same thing at UNC. Mac Brown's not going to go anywhere until he finds a successor that he thinks will keep Carolina competitive. And but you know, a lot of coaches are, you know, replaceable, but you got to think, you know, shit, just lost my train of thought. Edit. Shit, what was I trying to say?
Hard to edit when we're live.
Yeah, I know. Oh my God. But it was I mean, you just got to look over the big picture, and I'm right there with you. I believe Lincoln Riley would be like, bye.
Well, and you know, that's something else too. We'll get away from that situation, but you know, Virginia Tech, there's been so many names kicked around about who's going to take that.
Yeah. And to be honest with you right now, it's anybody's guess. But me and you talked that we think Jeremy Chadwell would be the best realistically fit from Coastal Carolina for them.
I really think if you look at all the coaches that they're talking about, you know, him, Luke Fickell, Shane Beamer.
Beamer's he's already came out and publicly said
Billy Napier.
Yeah, Bill Napier, yeah.
Like he's the only one that makes sense because all those guys make salaries that are commensurate to what Virginia Tech pays. Like, why, if I'm Hugh Freeze at Liberty, why would I, you know, he makes more or as much. He makes as much or more at Liberty than Fuente made at Virginia Tech.
Yep.
Why would I ever leave Liberty to go to Virginia Tech? Because Virginia Tech, it's kind of a dumpster fire.
It is.
And the way I mean that is it's a hard place to coach. It's a hard place to recruit. They've been down ever since Fuente took over. How do you rebound out of that? Like, you're always going to be in Frank Beamer's shadow, just like Neil Brown. And Neil Brown's always going to be in Don Nehlen's shadow. Doesn't matter what he does.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd have to win a national championship to get out of that shadow. Like,
yep.
Why would you leave a Liberty school that you're winning big games, going to good bowl games,
and you're getting ready to go into a conference?
You're ready to go into a new conference. Like, man, if I was Hugh Freeze, I'd ride that sucker till I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah,
sure, you might be able to go here or there and make a little bit more money, but it's not going to be anything commensurate with the amount of pressure that's going to be put on you to win.
No, and he's doing a bang up job recruiting. He's getting, you know, because Liberty's they're a school like Virginia, who's an academic school. It's going to take someone with brains to get into that school. I mean, they're just not going to admit every Tom, Dick, and Harry. So he's got to be, you know, strategic with his recruiting, and he's done a great job through the transfer portal as well. Look at Malik Willis from, I think he played Auburn. Yeah, he played at Auburn. I look at that. I mean, he's done a bang up job, and Malik Willis is one of the top quarterbacks in this year's draft class from the quarterbacks of the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the landscape's going to get interesting as teams starts moving conferences, officially moving conferences. You know, it's all conjecture until they actually start leaving, you know, coming and going. And, you know, there's some really good coaches out there at smaller schools that are right for the picking. But, you know, I think you got to be in the position where it fits. And, you know, West Virginia, you're good with Neil Brown. Give that man 2 more years. Let him get out of the COVID situation and get his players in, and then let's judge him. You know, Virginia Tech, you can't afford another Fuente. That's all I'm going to say. Like, you better be very, strategic in who you pick and very careful of who you pick, because you hire another Fuente, you may never get back on a national scale like you've been on before.
Because if in just thinking off the top of my head, in reality right now, if Virginia Tech don't make a home run hire, they're a good 5 years backwards, if not more.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, because you're talking, Fuente, he went 6 years?
He was there 6 years, yep.
Okay, and he had one good year, 2 good years?
His first
arguably.
2 years, his first 2 years, they were very good. He was 19-8 in his first 2 years. And that's when they signed him to that extension, that big buyout and everything like that, which was dumb. But hey, that's their money. They do what they want. But and now that his recruits have came in and Beamer's recruits have flushed, and off that first 2 years, you lost talent to the NFL. I mean, and those wasn't Fuente's players; those were Beamer's players. And I don't care what anybody says. Yeah, Fuente coached them, but that was Beamer's players.
Yeah, and that, I mean, that's the thing. You don't take your time and hire the right guy. I mean, you're looking, 5 years down the road, I mean, being really obsolete in the ACC, and that could really happen to Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see, I don't like Virginia Tech, but I won't want to see that to happen to any team. Like, that's about the worst thing that can happen.
No, and I don't want to.
Well, and people from West Virginia got to realize, if you keep trying to push Neil Brown out, that's exactly what's going to happen to us, because Dana Holgerson, he may have had a few good years and got us to some bowl games, never could win the bowl games, but he really did set West Virginia back just a little bit.
Yeah.
And Neil Brown has pulled it forward, like kicking and screaming. He has pulled us forward.
Yeah.
New facilities, new coaches, bigger commitments for coaching staffs, and one of the best classes ever coming into West Virginia.
Right.
Like, he's pulled us kicking and screaming the whole way, wanting more victories when he's already done so much. So, you just got to be really careful, because if they would fire Neil Brown, we would be in the exact same spot that Virginia Tech's in right now.
Yeah. And Virginia Tech right now, I mean, when I look at the state of Virginia, as you have Virginia Tech, you have UVA. When Justin Fuente came in, he was the hot commodity. He was the big shiny new toy. Him and Matt Campbell, if you remember Matt Campbell, who ended up going to Iowa State. At that time, Virginia Tech could have went with either way. To me, in the beginning, I was a Matt Campbell guy. I was wanting Virginia Tech to get Matt Campbell so bad. I was, that's when I was big into boosters. I was lobbying for them to sign Matt Campbell, give him what he wants, because I knew in my heart of hearts that Justin Fuente was not the man for the job. And from the first time I met him, I didn't like him. I mean, from the very first time I met him, I did not like him. Still don't like him to this day. Then I look at Bronco Mendenhall at UVA. Talking about perfect fits. Bronco Mendenhall is beyond a shadow of a doubt the best hire that UVA's had since George Welsh, and that was from 1980 to the 2001, I think, give or take, if my math is right in my head. He is the epitome of a Virginia. He fits their mold. He fits their culture. He fits everything that Virginia is. He's it. And you got to look at him. He came in with nothing. Literally, Mike London's previous administration left him with squat. And those first 2 years, they were in the toilet. It was 2-10, and I think he won like 3 or 4 the next year. But every year since then, they've been on that upward trend. They've went to a bowl game every year, except for last year they opted out. But even though they qualified for a bowl game last year, they opted out. Then this year they're bowl eligible. And you got to look at what they've had so far. They've had Bryce Perkins, who was a once-in-a-generation talent, who put Virginia on the map. Then this year, Brennan Armstrong, talking about another tough quarterback who's tough as nails, came in, and he's taken them a little bit farther. And they're on that upward trajectory. And and even though his recruiting sucks in terms of Virginia and, in terms of, recruiting the state, Bronco is the perfect fit for their organization.
And I agree with you totally. I thought when Virginia Tech, and I'm with you on that, when they hired Fuente, I thought it was a mistake. Matt Campbell when he was at Toledo, you could tell he was going to be a home run.
Yep.
Wherever he went.
Yep.
You could tell that, he gets it. He knows how to be a head coach, and he's going to be good at it. Like I was, again, how I feel about Virginia Tech, but I always felt like they totally miffed there, because if they would have hired him, I mean, I think his career would have been better served at Virginia Tech, and they would have been served better by him, of course.
Exactly.
I mean, because look at what he's done at Iowa State. I mean, Iowa State's on the map.
It was a dumpster. Fire.
And it was Kansas. It was
a laughing stock in the Big 12.
And now, I mean, they have to find consistency. That's the one criticism I have of Matt Campbell. Like, you got to find consistency. But other than that, I mean, his recruits have been top notch. He's getting good quarterbacks. He's getting good running backs. He's getting good receivers.
Yep.
He's got good guys coaching around him. Like, they're on an upward trajectory. Will they ever win a national championship? Probably not. I don't see that happening. But to be a mid-level team, they're at about at their ceiling. You know?
Yeah, and there was another coach I was just thinking about in terms of the ACC that came in right before Fuente, and you and me both, have sung their praises this year. And this guy, I would not be surprised if he's not ACC Coach of the Year. And I'm talking about Pat Narduzzi at Pitt.
Well, I mean, there's no coach in the ACC that deserves it more than he does. As a West Virginia fan, you hate to talk good things about Pitt, but I've been singing their praises all year. Like, they're a fun team to watch. They're a tough team. I think they're just about as good as, maybe outside of Georgia, Alabama. I think I'd love to see them play Cincinnati. I mean, I think that'd be a phenomenal game. I really do. I think it would be, to me, that would be a game worth watching. But I really think they're that good. I hate to praise them. God, I hate talking good about Pittsburgh, but I've watched them play probably 4 or 5 times this year, and
they
really
were in your top
it
5
every single time. Yeah, I mean, I've been singing it all season. Like, if you want to watch a team that's really fun to watch, Pitt is a fun team to watch.
And what the scary thing about that? Pitt's not an old team either. They're right there in the middle, all except for Kenny Pickett. Kenny Two Gloves. He's going to go to the NFL. And, if Pitt can find themselves a comparable quarterback next year, maybe, I don't know if there's another Kenny Pickett out there. I mean, he's a talent that comes around once a decade. He's a decade talent, I would say, who comes around once a decade. I mean, is there another quarterback out there? It could be in the transfer portal, could be on their roster now. I don't know. I don't know Pitt's roster. I mean, he could be there now, but that from one thing from Pat Narduzzi, they're always going to have a solid defense. They're always going to be tough. They're always going to be gritty.
And
they
the
may
fans
not
are
win.
always going to be assholes. Sorry,
Exactly, fans are going to be assholes. Their weather sucks there. That whole stadium, that whole city sucks.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Kenny Pickett, man, I really and I've said this and I'm saying it again, if you're affiliated with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I don't like the Steelers either. Y'all know that. But if I'm affiliated with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm saying, guys, we need to take a serious look at this Pickett kid, because not only is I think he's good enough to start in the NFL, but Ben Roethlisberger's only got a few years left.
Yeah,
you get him a couple of years behind Big Ben in Pittsburgh, if you can get him on your roster as the Steelers, you're going to sell tickets just because it's Kenny Pickett. it's such a home run pick for the Steelers.
It makes sense.
Like, I kind of hope that happens, just because, like, every once in a while, like, you look at teams and you're like, this could be like a marriage made in heaven. Like, this is one of those moments that you don't see very often. And if they would pick him and make him a Steeler, I would respect the Pittsburgh as a whole a little bit more.
Yeah, I would too. I would too. Ben Roethlisberger maybe has a year, maybe two max. Me and him's the same age. We'll both be 40 this year. So, does he have enough gas in the tank for another year or two to set the next future up? And if, like I said, if whoever gets Kenny Pickett, that's going to be a starting quarterback for you in a year or two.
Unless you are a New York team. And then he joins your long list of dumpster fire picks.
Oh, God. Or if you're Miami and screw everything up.
But, guys, this is Sam with the Mountineer Effect, along with Marcus Dean of the Flavor of the Week. We just wanted to have a little conversation about Mark's experience at North Carolina and some of the things going on in the college landscape. Leave us a comment below. Let us know what you think. Tell us what teams you like to watch, and, who does Virginia Tech need to hire? Who do you think would be a good fit? But for Mark and myself, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Catch us on the next time. We're going to probably do another video this week. We're going to focus a little more on the NFL. Okay. We're going to start kind of tapering on that direction a little bit. As the college, we're about out of college football, and I am going to start talking some college basketball. Believe it or not, I haven't went there yet just because it's getting started. I'm a big West Virginia basketball fan. Like, I watch all their games. Like, I love the basketball as much as the football, maybe even a little bit more. So I'm looking forward to that too. But me and Marcus is going to be collaborating a lot more here on the Mountineer Effect. With some different things. We've got to find a way to broaden our horizons on the content. So I think me and Marcus got to do it. But for me and Mark, you guys have a good night. Thanks for tuning in. Let's go Mountaineers.
Go Heels.